sometimes you get it birthday.
All right. We call the October 8th, 2019 meeting of the Macon County Board of Commissioners to order. I'd like to welcome all of you in attendance and I look forward to discussing the business of Macon County with you tonight. Any announcements?
Just one, Mr. Chairman, on this coming Thursday is Veterans Stand Down here in Macon County. That will begin from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you've never been to a Veterans Stand Down, it's a wonderful event for all of our veterans. And Mr. Shields might want to elaborate on that.
It is, you get haircuts and whatever you want to do, some clothing items and those type of things like that. And it's a lot of information for veterans. And last year there's probably a couple hundred or more there during that time.
And we're the only county anywhere around, and certainly in FAR 23 that does this. So we're very proud of it and proud of our veterans. So if you have a chance to go to the stand down, I think you'd be very impressed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
One other thing, we're talking about veterans. We had a veteran pass away this morning, Lee Whitaker. Many of you knew Lee in the school system. His kids there. He was one of our leaders in our school during when his children were there, and for a long time after his children. But Lee Whitaker passed away this morning.
All right. Prayers will be with his family. Anything else? I would like to, Jack, Commissioner Gillespie, if y'all would personally thank the Macon County Planning Board. I've been hearing great things about them making it around to our various communities, listening to concerns, and making that effort. I know that they're still getting that very high dollar pay that they receive every week in their pay stub, but we appreciate them. We appreciate them making the effort. And I've been hearing great things that the county's reaching out. So if you can reach that out to them from our board, I think it would be noteworthy for their efforts. So thank you. If we'll all rise, observe a moment of silence, I'm going to ask Commissioner Shields to lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we do not have a public hearing tonight, first meeting in a while, so we'll move right on to public comment period. First up, we have Diane Dodge, reconsideration of vote. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you. I swear to tell the truth. I come before you today to ask for a reconsideration vote to require disguise for the cell tower on C.R. Cave Road. Somehow the neighbors of the new cell tower were not heard in all this discussion. I first learned about this project by stopping my car and reading the public notice sign posted on my neighbor's property. From that moment on, I knew there was nothing we could do but to beg for disguise of this giant pole. The board totally ignored the pleas of the neighbors. I tried to ask each board member why they voted as they did. Mr. Shields and Mr. Tate did not return my email. Mr. Beal told me there was a state law that trumped our county laws. Mr. Higdon said he always voted with Mr. Beal, and Mr. Gillespie thinks that undisguised towers look best. I feel like the board was misinformed with all these excuses. First, I contacted the North Carolina Law Library about North Carolina law trumping ours. I have made a copy of this response I got back. No such law. Verizon went into this contract with Miss Bradley knowing that Macon County could demand camouflage. They knew. Why did you think they would back out if you enforced this clause in the ordinance? All the neighbors disagree with Mr. Gillespie. We wanted disguise. It was the only thing you really got to vote on. You could not have changed the location nor refused the application even if you had wanted to, per our current ordinance. Why even bring this permit in front of the board? You ignored the pleas of the neighbors and the beauty of our county. What is the job of the county planner? Why were they not involved to give you advice on the aesthetics of the beautiful valleys of Macon County? Everyone thinks the towers are eyesores, so really, it is a no-brainer to follow the rest of the country with the practice of trying to hide them. This tower is not on top of a mountain. It is in a valley, so it is very visible. Jeff gave you an accurate picture of what it is going to look like. A big shiny pole is the worst. Imagine how you would feel if it was in front of your house. So I urge you to reconsider this vote and require camouflage. It can be done.
Ms. Dodge, did you attend our meetings? Because you obviously didn't hear why I didn't vote for camouflaging.
I couldn't, and I've been trying to get copies of the minutes all month, and no success. That's a copy of that North Carolina sent back to me.
Mr. Chairman, just the minutes of the last meeting are not available to the public until they are approved, which the minutes from the previous meeting will be approved at this meeting.
Okay. Well, I don't mind telling you, or telling the public again, why I didn't vote for camouflaging or why I will not vote for camouflaging. I own a property in Highlands on Main Street that sits catty-corner to a currently camouflaged pole, and it, in my opinion, is an environmental disaster. Every time it rains, every time the wind blows, I'm out picking up the fake Christmas tree branches, the little limbs and the little pine cones that are not pine cones, but the little green fake pine branches are all over my property.
Of that.
There's also one on the top of Satula Mountain in Highlands, so there's two of them up there. And I'm in the landscape business. I maintain the property that sits directly across the street from the one on Satula, and it is a constant effort to keep up with it. And there's just not a. I understand the principle of it, but there's just not a good product that I've seen yet that holds together with our inclement weather here.
Well,
so
all over the country,
that's just,
they're
I'm telling you,
putting
that's
in,
why I didn't. So yeah,
I just
don't
want to
disagree
think
with it. I
that,
just don't think it's a good product. So
I guess you're with Mr. Gillespie, and I'm sorry I couldn't understand or get the minutes to find out.
Okay.
But I feel like you failed our neighbors.
thank you, Ms. Dodge. NK, I presume that's Narelle. Welcome. Narelle, you were in a biking accident, is that correct?
Yes, sir. And if you don't mind, I'd like to stand in the corner then rather than come over there. Can everybody hear me okay?
Go ahead.
If you go back through the minutes of the last 5 years, there was one time I came and respectfully asked that you finish repairing the greenway from the damage that Hurricane Ivan did. Then I came another year later and said more urgently do it, and then I made a third plea. Still nothing has been done. We've got where the cave-in was on the northern section, there's a very rough section on the downslope from the bridge on the Fox Ridge area where the track hoe did all its work in 2004. That's still very rough. And there are 4 sections on the southern section that haven't been paved even today. There were a road cut up by the college. So as a consequence, when I'm biking, I have to go out where the football and soccer players practice. And I was nailed hard by a charging dog while I was there, thrown from my bike and seriously injured. Fortunately, there were a couple who were entertaining their kids nearby. They saw the problem, called 911, and I was in Asheville at their hospital for a couple of days. So it could have been, as serious as it was, it could have really been problematic. So I urge you most fervently now to go ahead, since you've taken care of the kiddies area and you're redoing the dog park, now it's time to attend to the pathway that some thousands of people walk each week.
Okay, we're going to be discussing that under old business, or a portion of the Greenway. this evening, so I'll make sure we bring that back up.
Shall I go into my next?
Go ahead, yes.
I had an occasion to go see one of the principals at the Macon Middle School, and as I drove in, I saw 2 police cars sitting on the side of the road, and the traffic was relatively light. When I finished and attempted to go home, I was just appalled at the amazing traffic jam that you suffer through there every weekday that school is open. And since Robbie is here, I want to publicly express my thanks to the 2 officers who were assigned, fortunately on a rotating basis. But nevertheless, one of them grabbed me, kindly took me by the shoulders and said, "Norell, if you can come up with a solution to this problem, please do so, because it is, for 45 minutes a day, just a nightmare." And I've illustrated this. Is there anybody who can't see it? Can you?
We got you, go ahead.
Okay, this is the intersection, and ignore for the moment the yellow areas. The red indicates cars that are attempting to get to MVI, and the blue cars that are attempting to get to Macon Middle School. Then all of those cars have to come back and of course go to work or something, so that's what the green cars are. When you add in the yellows, which represent from 1 to 3 school buses, for instance, here there are 14 buses, here there's only 1. The total of vehicles entering and exiting that intersection over a 45-minute period is 1,000. It's probably the busiest intersection short of Raleigh and Charlotte in the state. So I really give plaudits to the officers. I'm suggesting that a solution be considered, number 1, on the back side of the church and the graveyard, and be the north and eastern boundaries of Macon Middle School. A man has bought what used to be a farm over here, and the silo is still there, but it's very obvious he is planning on developing that. And from what I can see, his property also adjoins the road that parallels the Macon Middle School drive. So if you all could talk to him and see if you might be willing to have a county road go right through there, then people could bypass this intersection on their way to MVI entirely. Another alternative is right opposite the exit for Macon Middle School is a farm. And I've met the 2 gentlemen that own that, and they're very reasonable. Somebody in this area, I think his name is like Loblolly, has developed underground utilities and put in a road bed, not the surface, but the understory. And that comes down to perhaps 100 feet from the exit of Macon Middle School. That might be an alternative if the county were to have a county road in there instead of just a development road. The problem is coming back into Bellevue, that'd be a very difficult task to tie into Bellevue, so I'm not pushing that. The 3 alternatives I'm coming up with is the most obvious, is I'm not interfering at all with the closed gate and the lane for the police vehicles right in front of MVI. That should stay there because that protects the children when they're unloading. But the fire road that comes back here, and that's why I was so anxious to contact Jimmy Team, ends and it comes into here. It would be very easy to extend that into Clark's Chapel, Wells Grove. There is a very large, beautiful oak tree right here that could probably be saved and just a minor tree taken down. And this would be only an exit, not for entry. And if you coordinated with the county, you could have a blinking yellow light here, much as we have on 441, warning you that an intersection is coming up. It would not operate during the day except between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. And then at a certain point when, say, there were 5, 10, whatever number of cars you decided had gotten into this exit, the yellow light would become red and stop traffic on both ways on Wells Grove momentarily while they exited. So that would take care of all of this group. Instead of coming out of the school and going left, they'd all come out and go right. This appears to be church property, but actually I talked to the head of the vestrymen. The state now owns all of this. Right here is a very serious culvert that would have to be reinforced and steel put over it. But a whole lane could be designated just for left turning, and then of course it could be extended all the way to where the existing bus entry into Macon Middle School is. Where the police park during the morning, that's ample room to put in a whole nother lane. So you could have a designated left turn lane, and this would be the through lane. There'd be room for it to squeeze back in without getting interference with the stream. I wanted to say this in public because if there's something I've missed, I certainly want somebody to tell me. But if I brought anything new to your consideration, it's worth doing, because while I've known Wesley Grindstaff for some 10 years, I've never met Jeff Moore, but I have no problem taking this and presenting it to them to coordinate with the efforts that they've already undertaken. But I didn't want to miss anything. So that's why I was anxious to do it in public session, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nora. Just give you an update, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Morgan wrote a request, and we worked together on it. That formal request was made to the DOT on the 23rd at our RPO meeting for a full traffic study. Of course, the state is in limbo with the budget, but Mr. Birch has said that he believes that can move forward, and it has been submitted for approval at the next DOT board meeting. So we'll certainly. You gained pictures of that? No, who took a picture of that? Somebody took a picture of it. Travis will give us a picture.
I forgot to mention, it's up there in the logo, each one of these little circles represents 20 vehicles. So you can imagine if you multiply that, how this gets to be really tough. Would you like me to leave that with you, or do you have a record of it?
No, you just take it. We can get a record. We just need a picture. We'll let Wesley or Mr. Birch, we'll all get together, Nora, we'll talk about it. If they approve the study.
Then
we don't do traffic lights and studies. And
why don't you include me in that rather than me going to them independently, because they'll recognize my name right away.
Okay.
Mr. Bill, if I could add to that, if you'll remember also that they did a study prior to this study where we actually talked about traffic light, and they did a study on that. And the state determined that, based on their study, that it didn't need a traffic light. And the only thing I would say to you, Norell, if I would have known that you were going to talk about the one problem you're still going to have is you're still going to have that intersection. You're still going to come back through. We'll take a picture of it and make sure they get it.
These cars, I have no solution for. Somebody has to be able to get them across the street with all of these coming on.
I believe, Mr. Norell, you're going to see a different approach from the DOT. They're going to start where you come out of the Walmart, if you will, and they'll start right there. And the problem we've had before is the rock outcropping.
Right. It's very solid
Those
rock.
folks will not sign right of way, and they won't. It's hard to condemn a right of way on a second. That's not a primary road. So, but I think they have the attitude now with the problems there before an accident does happen. Mr. Gibbs, I think the state may proceed on with that. So we'll just see where there'll be a turning lane there now.
And the only problem is in the morning. When you go in the afternoon, number one, the Macon Middle School, they've got sports, so they don't have the parents coming at the same time. All the school buses fill up and go before the parents come in to MPI. And most of the parents want to catch up with things with their kids. So if they're sitting and waiting to get through the intersection, they're chatting. They're not having to get to an 8 a.m. work report.
Thank you, Norell.
Thanks for letting me
Hope you heal up quickly.
extra time.
All right, Paul Maynard, Freedom House. Welcome, Paul. Freedom House. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, thank you guys. So I'm here just as a courtesy. I'm Paul Maynard, and I represent House of Hope Church of God, Freedom Addiction Ministry, and recently a new addition to our outreach program, Freedom House. We have found a residence on 49 Northside Drive. It's off of Love Street. I'm sure you guys are privy to it now, last night's meeting. So what our intention, I want to be here to let you guys know what our intention is, and that we wanted to make sure that we are following all rules, all guidelines, everything, and we want the community support, because this is a community project. I've been running the Freedom Addiction Ministry for a few months now, maybe 6 or so, and we've seen a need. I'm a Christian man. I actually used to be a really, really, really bad person, and I've been in and out of the jail here. I've been out of jail. I was a slave to addiction for 20 or so years of my life. Through Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I have gained my freedom. So, running this addiction ministry, I have found a need, and the need is simply this: the people that come to our meetings, they want freedom. They want what it is that I have went through to get to where I'm at. And by no means am I perfect, or have I attained the ultimate goal. But the problem is when they leave this meeting, they have to go back to the same place as they were before. The trap house, where drugs, alcohol, and crime are prevalent. So I believe see a need, meet a need. So we are meeting a need. So now these people that are at this house, I want the community and the esteemed members of the board to know that these people are not drug addicts. I don't believe that I'm a drug addict anymore. I believe by His stripes I'm healed. I believe that I'm no longer a drug addict. I am a recovered, used to be drug addict. I have no longer been in the jails. I have my family back. My wife is home. I hold a good job. I'm trusted by my pastor, Gregory Bartram, with this ministry. We have 5 residents right now who have given their life to the Lord. They're free from drugs. The probation department is behind us. And I want you guys to know that our main intention is to get people back where they're supposed to be. I want them to be fathers again. I want them to be mothers again. My kids were in DSS custody for over 2 years. They're all home now. So this program is based on exactly what I went through and the steps that I took to get where I'm at. I know that there's some resistance, but I want everyone to know that the community is going to be more safe because of this. These people are no longer going to be going to jail. These people are no longer going to be, using drugs. They are going to be Sunday. There's two gentlemen that were in active addiction. Now they're clean. They're getting baptized Sunday. They've given their life to the Lord. Our program is a strict program. They will do money management. They will have to adhere to drug testing. Also, I would like everyone to know that there will always be someone on staff 24 hours a day. I have a live-in coordinator, facilitator, him and his wife. We meet our maximum occupancy. I've talked to the town planner. I've talked to Mr. Team to make sure that I want all the rules to be met, all the guidelines to be met, because I want you guys to be behind me. I want you guys to believe in what I'm doing. And the next thing I want to do is I want to open a women's house, and then I want a house for families. There's nothing in this community like this. We have another place that's, that houses homeless people. I'm not combating the homeless problem. This is not about homelessness. This is about people that are in drug addiction that no longer want to be in drug addiction. I'm not going and getting people off of the street that are in drug addiction and saying, "Oh, I got a place for you." I'm reaching people that don't want to be in drug addiction anymore and don't have a place to be. So the program is strict. If anybody has any questions, I have cards. I will be more than happy to answer any questions. I'll be more than happy to allow a walkthrough of the house. I'll be more than happy to have testimonies from the people that are there, that are gaining freedom. Our goal is simply this: freedom. It's about freedom. And I think that if this is done correctly with the help of the community, I feel like that there's going to be less people going to jail. There's going to be less people losing their kids to DSS. There's going to be law-abiding citizens who are actually putting money into our community by maintaining a job. So there are lots of, like I said, there's lots of rules, and there's lots of papers that they have to sign. There's lots of things that they have to do. So the people that actually enter this program, they have, before they ever are accepted, they have signed away a lot of things that is very important to somebody. If they're not serious about it, within three or 4 minutes, I know, and they don't want to be part of it. So this is about people that are serious. This is about people who really want to change. And I feel like us as a community and a body of believers, that it is up to us to be able to facilitate that change. It's very important that we have a place for these people. Right now we don't. It's my heart. It's my heart.
Well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you, guys.
If you'll give me a call, we're having peer-to-peer support classes every Saturday in October at No Wrong Door up on Thomas Heights.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we'd love to have you there.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
God bless
every
you.
Saturday.
All right,
We start
thank
at
you,
9
guys.
o'clock every Saturday in October.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I do. I'll have to send
Okay,
my card again.
just leave one with Adam back there to the
Yes, sir.
workshop, yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Good job.
Thank you,
Keep
Paul.
it up.
All right, it's Sam Hochoy, Macon Library. Come on up, welcome.
I'm sure Karen been here many times. I printed out what we public library do. It's printed out. I don't have any complaints anymore. I'm not going to ask more money right now. But anyhow, the reason I came to what we like to do is we have a lot of turnovers in the front office, that because of a small money matters, like to have limited increase a little salaries once in a while after they wouldn't turn around to many times. I have this, what the library does is many things there. So I think, first of all, we thank you for support the library. I grew up during the Korean War, so then I was, I think, 12 years old, nothing to do, so I spent a lot of time in the library, dreaming a lot of things. That helped what I did later life. I like to climb the high mountains, but those days I didn't have money to go around, so my dreams come true like the 50s and 60s. That's the time library helped. I read about the high mountains of other countries, all that. So the library is a very important part of my life, and so thank you for supporting libraries. Thank you.
Thank you. Serving, Dr. Choi.
All right, that's all that I have signed up. Anybody else like to address the board? All right, we're moving right along. Additions to agenda. Mr. Manager, anything?
Mr. Chairman, if we could, we're going to have a second appointment on the Macon County Planning Board.
Okay.
There are 2 seats currently vacant, and we have a recommendation for both of those
So
tonight.
two applicants for 2 seats, and they'll be under 13A.
Yes, sir. And also, we have Ms. Shelley Foreman here with us tonight from VIA. We previously discussed a funding resolution, and she would like to again just present that to us under reports and presentations.
Okay.
So if
Add
we could
that
add that,
9B.
9B,
Via.
to reports and presentation.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
All right. Anything else? Lori? Chester? All good? All right. Everybody good? We'll get a motion to approve the
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Aye. Reports and presentations. Region A broadband aid update. Sarah Thompson, Executive Director of the Southwestern Commission. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Good evening. Commissioner Shields asked that I come and let y'all know what we've been doing about broadband, so that's what I'm here to do. Start by thanking you for your recent investments in broadband. I hope that works out. It's nice to see a county doing something, taking the matter into their own hands. We started working on broadband a few years ago. As you know, we're an economic development agency and a community development agency, and there is not a single topic that we deal with, whether it be workforce training, services for healthcare, older Americans, economic development. There's just not a single thing that we deal with daily that we don't hear about our poor broadband availability and quality. So we took it on. We've historically been an agency that deals with critical infrastructure, and broadband is certainly the critical infrastructure of this era. We did phase one. We serve the 7 western counties, so we're doing this regionally. We did a phase one planning in 2017 that included demand aggregation surveys to find out the areas of the 7-county region that were underserved or unserved. We encouraged the formation of county-based broadband committees so that each county had a local committee working on it. You all, of course, at that time already had one, but they didn't all, and so now each of the 7 counties do have a broadband committee. And part of that first phase was also some training for the folks working on broadband in the region. A couple years went by. We've applied for more funding to continue our regional study, and we are now in phase 2. And this involves mapping of the vertical assets in the region, basically your poles. The reason why we decided to focus on vertical assets, wireless propagation, is because with the current technology, given our landscape, given the funding availability, wireless is the solution that has been the most effective in rural areas. Is it the only solution? Absolutely not, but it's a good one for rural areas because you don't have to have fiber going to each location you're trying to serve, which we'll probably never have in the mountains because we don't have enough people to make that ever work financially. So the vertical asset inventory will map every tower in the region. It'll say who owns it, the GPS coordinates, the frequencies available on it, and the opportunities for co-locating. So as there's not every tower doesn't have just one company serving on it. There are often many.
Some of them have no company.
I knew you were going to bring that up. So the idea behind the 2 studies is to not only figure out where we have the greatest need and some population density to achieve a return on investment for the company, but also to do all the legwork for them as far as where they could place their equipment. Throughout this process, we're engaging every provider, private internet service provider that is doing business in the 7-county area. I have a list of them if you want it. And our data that we are collecting through these studies is open and free to anyone, to any provider that wants it. We will have identified the assets, collected all the information they have on them. We're working with the communities. We know who wants it and needs it, who's already serving there. We even did speed tests through the survey to see what speeds you're actually getting versus what you're paying for. So really just trying to do a lot of the legwork to then incent the providers to come in. That still leaves the question of funding it. How are they going to fund it when it's often much more expensive in the mountains? and you also have less customers in rural areas. So the grants have been slow to come, but they are trickling through. As you know, the state has a grant that is funded again in the budget negotiations that we're going through right now. We helped 2 wireless companies in Region A apply for and receive those grants last year. That's a service we're willing to offer any provider that wants it. They've taken us up on it. We help them write the grant, and we're administering the grant for them, because that's a barrier. These are small entrepreneurial wireless providers. They've never written a grant in their life. They don't want to be grant writers, but we can do that for them. They added 1,000 new customers with those grants. Is that solving the problem in Region A? No, but is it progress? In my mind, it is. And there were a couple other grants from the state program that were funded in the Region 1 here in Macon County with Morris Broadband. And then Frontier was awarded one in Clay County that they are not going to use. So in total, we had 4. We'll keep working. The budget has it for Tier 2 counties next year, too. It was just for Tier 1, and then the tier system changed, and we all moved up to Tier 2. And we got worried we wouldn't be available or eligible for those grants, but we will be. Another example of grant funding that we can assist with, it's been a problem that counties through North Carolina state law cannot build the infrastructure, which also means we can't apply for our traditional infrastructure grant funding through the Appalachian Regional Commission. They fund water and sewer extensions all the time, and they fund broadband in other states, but in North Carolina they can't fund it because we're not eligible to apply for it because of the law. So Swain County did a workaround on that and had their Chamber of Commerce apply for it. We're going to administer that grant for Swain County, and the private provider will pay the match. So there are ways that some counties are getting that federal money by using someone like the Chamber or a nonprofit. Graham County used the Great Organization. So, of course, Representative Corbin is the co-sponsor of the Fiber NC Act, which would change that law and allow counties more flexibility in building and owning fiber, which you could pay for yourself and or apply for grants to help fund that. And that would take a lot of that workarounds with nonprofits out of that equation. Another angle that we're taking on this is, you're not going to get anybody to grant you money if you say we need better broadband to watch Netflix, right? You have to have a public reason, a public good to get a grant. So the State Department of DIT Technology and the Department of Health and Human Services are doing a telehealth study. Telehealth is becoming a real way to solve some of our rural healthcare needs. If you can have a consult over a screen over the internet with a psychiatrist that practices in a city with a patient in a rural area, you're cutting down on some time that person might be in jail rather than receiving treatment. And so that we are looking for ways to make the argument for this that are not just quality of life and economic development, that are also public health. Of course, the education piece with the kids getting sent home with laptops and not having internet at home to do their homework. There's a lot of different ways, and we are chasing every rabbit that we can find as far as making an argument for this and working with state and federal partners who are making that argument too. We are having a summit on Friday, October 25th at Southwestern Community College, where we will be talking about all of this stuff, but for much longer than I'm going to talk to you tonight. And it won't be me talking, it will be experts in the field. And we've invited every provider. There will be a question and answer panel with the providers who choose to attend. There will be some funding models presented that have been successful in other areas. it should be a really interesting day. If anybody would like to attend, Commissioner Shields has already registered. But on regiona.org, you can sign up for that. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, the Southwest Commission and all of us that's in the leadership position there, of course, we're all in lockstep about broadband. We know that. And sir, they work hard. But it's really going to have to take a change of attitude in Raleigh. We can have these small providers and the county can try to help some of these, and we hope it does help. But until they keep passing laws to make it tougher, just because our zip code, we should have the same opportunity for broadband regardless. And that's the argument we have to make.
Yeah.
And we've not made that argument. Of course, they're giving as much money out as they are. You can understand, they got more lobbyists. They have to, put a white tag on each other, keep from lobbying each other.
Well, I will say in the past few years, it has really become a very elevated conversation as far as it's it's a necessity, not a luxury. So, and that's why we're looking at it from angles such as public health and education, and not just quality of life.
On your mapping of the vertical assets,
yes.
Do we have access to that? Or
Yeah, when it's done.
When it's done.
Anybody can have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of that already. I mean, Mr. Steve, I think here, I think we have a lot of
Well,
that.
and I hope that you've heard, or your staff has heard from our consultants, because counties that have already done a lot of work, we're not going to recreate it. We're going to take what you already have and compile it.
Sarah, thank you. I'm changing the subject on you. I heard you mention that there might be some funding available for some sewer line extensions.
Yeah, always. Just let us know.
Mr. Manager and I were talking about one today, so.
Yeah, whenever
Sure,
it's
I'll follow
attached
up on
to
that.
some sort of business expansion or job creation, there's definitely federal money available that we can assist with.
Here you go, Dee.
Thank you for the job you do.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
Sarah.
nice
Thank you,
evening.
Sarah.
Yeah.
All right, the volume resolution. Shelley, welcome, Shelley.
Chili, I can be passing these down. Mr. Shields, if you'll just take one and pass it down.
Did you want to say something else, Derek, or should I?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So thank you again for having me this evening. I know I was here, I guess, a month or so ago to report to you about the status of the proposed state funding reductions for people who have no insurance and do not qualify for Medicaid but are in need of mental health, substance use, and developmental disability services. Just as a reminder, over the last two previous budget cycles, the last 4 years, VIA alone has had $48 million cut from its indigent fund allocation from the General Assembly. In this upcoming budget that is yet to be passed, there is a possible additional $9 million for funding reductions that would directly impact people in the community. Just as a reminder, VIA Health commits 100% of the funding we get for indigent care back to our communities through our comprehensive care providers who have probably gone many years without seeing a funding increase. What we know is that these reductions, because of their cumulative effect, we're to the point now where they will have significant impact on what services will be available to people in our counties who don't have insurance. And so just to give you a little bit of a recap, I talked to you about this before just to give you a heads up. Since that time, there's been some good movement. Our board of directors, and Mr. Beal can speak to this, we always thank him for his work on our board and as chair of our County Commissioner Advisory Board. They passed a resolution requesting the General Assembly to reconsider the funding reductions and also to reconsider the formula that they were using for doing these funding reductions.
Our County Commissioner Advisory Board has passed that resolution. To date, six of the far west counties, with Macon being the last of the 7, have passed unanimously these resolutions. And partly that's been really supported, and I don't know if you had the chance to read it, that Representative Corbin has really come out and has worked with Representative Josh Dobson, who is the chair of the Appropriations Committee, to say we did not really realize that these funding reductions were being passed in this way, that they would have such a negative impact to Western North Carolina, which is obviously the area they represent. He's talked with many of our commissioner members, both our board members and commissioners in the far west, to encourage them to go ahead and pass the resolutions so he can begin working to either have this reconsidered before the budget passes or in the technical amendment phase. So we feel like through this work we're getting both some support from, of course, our Western delegation, but also that there's some attention coming out about this. And so I'm going to ask, I know that Commissioner Beal, you know you're involved in this in a big way. If you have anything to add, I don't know if County Manager Roland
I agree
has
with Shetty.
anything.
First of all, we appreciate the candor from Representative Dobson. Here's was his, quoting him, "It's one of my few regrets with the budget. He just missed it."
Yeah.
He said he'd be honest, he just missed it, the budget. The formula, if you don't know, we don't get in the weeds on it, but the formula has always been based on cash on hand within the LME, local management entity. Well, this year they rechanged that formula. Now, some places it helped, like down, let's say Trillium, that's the LME on the East Coast. Now, they got extra funding because of that. Now, that formula helped them, but it devastated us, the formula they used. It's going to impact Macon County and all the far west counties, but especially Macon County. We've been the leader in mental health services for a long, long time. We have a walk-in center. We have things that no other counties have. Graham County, Cherokee, and all those counties, they even went far enough to pass resolutions in support of Medicaid expansion.
Yeah.
And now that's
So is
that got
Representative
Mr. Berger's
Corbin
attention.
has been supporting that bill.
So,
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I would be more than happy to read the resolution if you think that's necessary.
And the one thing I want to mention is we really appreciate, because it was actually Representative Corbin who brought it to Representative Dobson's
That's right.
attention in communication with some of us. And so he's been, I really appreciate his advocacy in bringing this issue to the attention so that it can be addressed. And hopefully, while we wish that they would restore, they wouldn't take any funding reductions, by revisiting the formula, at least we would have perhaps less of an impact here for people in our counties.
And, Mr. Chairman, you saw the statistics on the uninsured in Macon County.
Oh.
We're one of the top 10 in the state, of course. And with the mental health and substance abuse, those are, our providers, they're struggling. 6 out of the 10 people they see don't have the ability to pay.
Yeah, just as I'll give you a quick number. In the last quarterly report we provided to the County Commissioner Advisory Board, in one quarter there were over 1,000 people being served from Macon County. And the really good thing about Macon County is that the vast majority of those folks get services here in Macon County. So that would be for indigent care, state funds. You have some number that get care, the facility-based crisis at Balsam and the behavioral health urgent care there in Haywood County. But it's a pretty significant number that can get their services here and don't have to drive.
So we have made some advances. The Balsam Center is wonderful. There's really nowhere to send folks for long-term care. We heard Paul just mention that. I admire anybody that takes a bed, buddy, and bucks to make this thing work. But with these cuts, Mr. Chairman, we could really, and Representative Dobson and certainly Kevin recognize the farther you get from Asheville, the farther west you get, the worse we are. That's just a fact.
Geography and
including broadband, mental health, anything else you want to mention. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if you want me to read the resolution, I'll be happy to, or I'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah, you can, if you would like to make a motion, that's your prerogative on that. So
I'd make a motion that we support this resolution in support of funding to meet the mental health, intellectual development disabilities, and substance use disorder service needs for the citizens of Macon County, and that the legislature restore those funding and use the formula as being based on for many, many years, which is a cash on hand, which would basically put us at even. It wouldn't be no cut, would be no increase in funding, but at least it would not be no cut severely. So
We
I'll
may
make
never
that
get
as a
another
motion.
increase.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bill, a second by Commissioner Shields. Discussion. I have had lunch with Representative Corbin last week and discussed this. I know he is well on top of it. I personally have some feelings about the way this resolution has written. I feel it's, again, just my personal feelings. I don't disagree with the principle of it. I feel like it was a little too strong at times, but maybe that's the way it needs to be taken. So I, at this time, I'm not prepared to support the resolution, but Representative Corbin knows that I'm very well stand behind the gist of what's going on here about restoring that funding and making sure that our needs are met, and he is aware of that. So anyway, if anybody else would like to speak to it, that's fine. So we'll call the vote.
Call vote.
All in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying aye. Aye. The vote fails.
It's too
to pass the
political.
resolution
Pardon?
3-2.
You're welcome to
Commissioners
change
Tate,
the language.
Gillespie, and Higdon voting against.
It's so
shall we
sad
make-
that we're the only county in the far west that would not pass this resolution.
We appreciate Representative Corbin and everyone's support.
Well, I do too. It's just sad.
All right.
Too political.
Moving on to old business, Greenway Connector Project. Jack Morgan, Director of Planning, Permitting, and Development.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners,
Welcome, Jack.
staff, how are you? Got a couple of things I want you to look at while I'm talking, if you don't mind.
I think we're ready.
Ready? Okay. The project itself, the Greenway, I'd call it the East Franklin Greenway Connection Project, begins, if you look at the aerial photograph there, begins at the red arrow. That's beside Wesley Park, between Wesley Park and Little Tennessee River. And it follows the red line on up the river under Northeast Main Street and East Main Street, turns back at the blue arrow and goes through the parking lot of Frogs and ends at the red X. All of this property that we're proposing to construct this connector is on Macon County property at this time. We would need, with the exception of under the bridges and the right-of-way for that. So because of that, we need to obtain an encroachment permit from the DOT. Well, the DOT said that would not be a problem, and would be free of charge. And by way of discussing this project and applying for the encroachment permit and obtaining permission for that, Mr. Brian Birch suggested and offered a 30-70 match on this with the county, our part being 30% and there being 70. As this new bridge project, which is the East Main Street, was not closed, and they still had some money left, which they could use for the 70% match. Well, the only real catch to that, and it's something we need to consider anyway, is a section after it goes under East Main Street and goes toward the blue arrow. There's about a 14-foot elevation change. So in order to use the DOT money and actually in order to comply with ADA requirements, we'd have to make that slope accessible. Well, the DOT, if we meet their standards, use their money, and they approve the project, we could cheat on that a little bit, according to their, and I believe just shooting from the hip. I couldn't find that document before I left the office, but best I remember that 30% of the linear feet, they have a different formula for calculating the slope rather than the usual 1 and 12, which eats up, if 14 feet, that's a lot of real estate. If you can just go up 1 inch every foot of horizontal. So anyway, you have a cost estimate there before you of $70,000. If you'd like to look at that for just a second.
And where's their match play into this? Yeah.
That would be, well, that's what I don't know yet. I'm working with Wes Jamison with the DOT. He's helping to draft the agreement between the DOT and us.
Okay.
And what we don't know at this point in time is when they would expect our 30%, where they expect it up front or at the end. I don't know, so I can't speak to that. But it could be less than this estimate. But we would have to do a topographic and a route survey, and we'd have to have an engineering plan in order to submit to the DOT. We have to do that. So those expenses come to $70,000. So 30% of that is $21,000, which is actually a pretty good deal, because if we just had to pave it, it'd be about $24,000. So there's a pretty substantial savings to go through the DOT if that works out. I hope it pans out. We're working on it. The project, of course, it may be more or less. If it's less, then our match will be less, not percentage-wise, but dollar-wise. Of course, it's based on the final price. And I hope there wouldn't be any more than that.
Jack, is any portion of that within one or more of those conservation easements?
Not that I'm aware of.
Need to check into that.
Okay.
And the purpose of this connector is?
It brings you back around, Mr. Higdon, to the red X is right at the end of the new bridge where they built the bike and pedestrian lane across the bridge.
And once you get across the bridge, where do you get back on?
Not worked on that end, but you would go right on up the river on the side there, that gravel area, and just barely out of sight at the bottom of that page is the greenway. Those 3 cars are parked at where the greenway is now. So, I don't know about that. So this would take care of the dangerous issue of people who want to continue on the greenway from the Wesley Park end, of causing 4 lanes of traffic to continue on. This would get them under the bridge and up on the bridge and on across the bridge and
That
down.
puts you right at the headquarters.
Yeah, the right there at between the blue air and the red X, this flat is this desk is through Frog's parking lot. We'd have to relocate some of their picnic tables, and regrettably they would lose some of the trees that they want to keep, but hopefully we'd have some money left in the budget to put some back.
Is it paving, is that for the entire area that's in red?
Yes, 10 foot wide.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Manager, did we already budget some money for this? I know we've discussed it, or have we not?
We have not. No, we've just discussed it. We haven't budgeted any funds. What the DOT is looking for right now, Jack, if I'm not mistaken, they're just wanting the county to say, we will be the lead agency on this project, because that's what they need to know to be able to move forward and be sure that the funding does not lapse for the bridge project.
Right. They will come up with an agreement, of course. You gentlemen, I assume, would have to approve before it went to construction anyway. So this is just a proposal.
So we'll be bringing the agreement back whenever Jack has it, whenever we have it ready back from the DOT. What we're looking for right now is a vote of this board to designate Macon County as the lead agency on the Greenway Connector project.
I make a motion that we, Macon County be the lead agency on this project.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Higdon. Any discussion?
Can the people that's mentally ill don't have the money to go nowhere to sleep there? Just wondering.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Proceed.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Update on Macon Middle School RFQ for architectural services. Todd Gibbs. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, thank you for carving out time out of your agenda to include me. I'm going to speak on behalf of the central office, and I hope for the Board of Education. We appreciate your attention towards Macon Middle School with this endeavor. We had a committee of 7 people met. There were 5 submissions to the RFQ, 5 architecture firms that submitted proposals to the RFQ. We decided to interview 3 of those based on their RFQs, and the unanimous decision of the committee was to recommend SGA Narmore Wright as the chief architect for Macon Middle School renovation.
How many applied initially again?
5.
5. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let me
Any
say-
questions from the liaisons?
Yeah,
Comments?
I was one on the liaison committee, and I want to thank Jack and Todd for leading this, putting this together. The people that we narrowed it down to, the 2, they're very good. But I think we all were in agreement, 100% agreement, that the SGA Narmore design was the one we felt the most comfortable with. And we met again this morning as a group. The group is Todd Gibbs, Terry Bell, Fred Goldsmith, Tracy Talent, Scott Madison, Jack Morgan, and Gary Shields. So I think it had it was a clear-minded approach to this. And I think the one thing, and I told Jack I was going to ask about this again, I know Mr. Bill and some of y'all is in construction, but run that by me again on the CM at risk, Jack, or what that means.
That's a different process to design and build as opposed to what we typically use is the design bid build process. The CM at risk is construction manager at risk. That's a different process. It requires that the architectural firm use somebody that they're familiar with, construction, to go through the process from beginning to end. They would give a maximum cost that it would cost the county, so there's not any work or change orders along the way with that. If they go over that, with the exception of the county or the school board deciding to make a change, then it stays that cost no matter what, or it doesn't exceed that cost. If it's less than that, of course it costs less than that. They give an accounting of what they actually spend. But this will be determined at a later date, but this is a process that this firm is very familiar with.
Mr. Bell, are you comfortable with that?
I have discussed it with Mr. Shields and Mr. Morgan. It seems that this architect firm is they're very experienced, and they with schools especially. And I think there are some cost-saving measures that I think if you read their contract, they're willing to implement. So I'd be very supportive of the committee's choice.
Okay. And renovation was a key thing that we looked at. Sometimes it's not easy to build a school, but it's easier to build than it is to renovate. That was one of our main emphasis there. That is their experience with renovations.
And some of the firms, they seem to, just reading through them with Mr. Shields, they seem to concentrate on more cosmetics than they did. What we really need to have done is roofs and windows and HVAC, the really stuff that matters in the long term. So, and these folks seem to have pretty good handle on it, Mr. Gibbs. So.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, this group that we're recommending seems to have the most out of the 5 that we looked at and 3 we interviewed, the most experience within North Carolina.
Okay. Do we don't need any action, do we?
I think
this
if
is
we're going to
information.
start,
I think what we would be looking for here is the school board has not approved this yet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I think this board would need to approve this firm contingent upon school board approval.
Okay. Can we get that in the motion?
I think it's actually the school board's choice.
Yeah.
I think all we can do is just say we're happy with it.
Yeah.
Do we have to have
If
a
they're happy
motion?
with it.
We've got to negotiate a contract price too, right?
Well, actually, that's for the school board to do unless
I
the,
mean, it's typically us doing it, I mean.
unless the school board wants us to be involved in that process.
Usually the school board has asked us to be involved.
And I think to the
Chairman Breedlove can speak to that.
And to the extent that we're going to do that, this RFQ was put out, was it not, by the school board as opposed to the county?
No, the county put it out.
County put it out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, then we'll be doing that negotiating.
County put it out, but we let the school
But,
staff evaluate the
with Jack and
proposals.
Mr.
With Jack
Shields.
Moore.
However, before we get too far down this road, the general statutes, of course, give the ability to hire as well as select the architect for these projects. And I probably need to speak with John Henning Jr. about preparing an appropriate local government agreement to deal with this project.
I think there's one
Including-
available. This is the way we've done them all,
It is.
including the new school.
It is. And I think we just need to get that agreement in place so that it's clear that as we hire an architect upon the recommendation of the school board, that all of these things have been addressed and the school board is in agreement with going in that direction, is happy with the architectural agreement.
So they need to have a motion to approve this architect before we do.
No, I think we go ahead.
I think it's fine for us to approve it subject to their approval.
I'd like to make that a motion. I'd like to make that into a motion that approve the SGA architectural engineering firm, subject to school board approval.
I'll contact John Henning Jr. and start that process of putting together interlocal agreement.
We have a motion by Commissioner Shields, second by Commissioner Bill. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Revision to SCC paving project agreement. Derek Roll, County Manager.
Mr. Chairman, all this is a simple matter of housekeeping. You'll remember we spent a couple months now approved a revised agreement for the SCC paving project. The only thing that we're changing here tonight is we had the signatory on there as Terry Bell, and in the time since we approved that agreement, we did not know at that time that he was no longer the chair. So it has been replaced. This agreement that Chester has provided to you here, nothing has changed except for the signatory of the
And the date.
and the date, of course, of the chair of Southwestern Community College, and that is Lambert G. Wilson.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Aye. Chester, if y'all have that ready, I'll sign it right now.
Have one.
Way I don't forget it. All right. Moving on to new business. Let me get this signed.
May actually be
This
set
is
up
the
for
old
their-
one.
No, it's set up for
That's the old one.
Okay, pardon me.
Yes, Jim.
Here. There it is.
All right. Mainspring Conservation and Trust will request permission to use a portion of county-owned property on Siler Road to temporarily access the adjoining parcel of land which they have recently purchased. Dennis Desmond. Welcome.
Welcome. And I'm not Dennis. I'm Jason Metter.
Jason, welcome. Dennis, welcome.
Thank you.
Talk about it briefly.
They have the map you gave me. They have that in their agenda packet.
Okay, good, great. That helps a little bit. So with Mainspring Conservation Trust, we recently, last year purchased a piece of property at the northern terminus of the current Macon County Greenway. It was the old, refer to it, or the southern end of Macon County Greenway. And we refer to it as the Dills property. And one of the issues that we had noticed, and part of the reason that I'm here presenting to you all, as the aquatic programs manager, is that most of the stream banks were washing away. The creek was eating away up into the fields. And so we wanted to address that issue of stabilizing the stream banks and hopefully keeping a lot of that erosion, the sediment and erosion, from continuing to go into Cartuga J Creek and further into the Little Tennessee River and Lake Emery. So just an aerial image of the property we're talking about. Oh, nope. I can see it. Nobody else can.
We got it on our iPad.
You got it on your iPad?
They've got it, obviously. Black and white. Let's see here.
So it's the outside bend of one of those dog legs at the end of Cartuga J Creek, just behind the library, Macon Early College, SCC, Macon campus. And we currently have one right-of-way easement access from a private landowner to get in to our property. And what we're actually requesting from the county is we've identified a much easier access coming in off the county property right before you would turn off of Old Sila Road. It would be a straight shot in. There would not be the risk of tearing up the private landowner's nicely blacktop surface with our heavy equipment. The same reason we would not go in and cross in with the greenway, the paved area there, because we just don't want to tear that up. Do you have anything else to add to that, Dennis?
Good for now. As you can see on your in your agenda packet there, if you'll turn that, if you'll just turn it to Mr. Shields on the landscape here, the southernmost checkered line right here is what they're requesting to use to access that Dills property. And as you can see right here, this property is owned by us. This building, for reference here, is the Macon Early College. And what they would be doing is just going right down that property line to access their property while they're making these improvements. Now, in speaking with Chester, I talked with Dennis before, and Dennis had mentioned maybe a temporary right-of-way. In speaking with Chester, he feels like, and I'm not going to speak for him, but the same could be accomplished with just a letter of permission. That would, without the survey, without anything else that we need to do on that easement. Is that right, Chester?
I think that is correct. I think probably one thing that the county would want to have an understanding with is that its property be restored to at least as good a condition as it was found.
So if the board wants to, as y'all discuss this, if this is something that you all want to move forward with, I think just authorizing Chester to draw up the appropriate permission and for me to execute it, I think.
And we'd need to define, the length of time, those sorts of things.
And working with Mainspring, we would work with them to get their timetable and of course get the appropriate agreement drafted, and then I could execute it.
What we're looking at Sila Road. Did you use this on the slide you got?
Yes, sir. So Sila Road and Old Sila Road.
Got you. You turn off of it.
Correct.
Just remember on the Deals property, the county has a agreement with Mr. Deals. We made the agreement, the county did, about a sewer line.
Which is on there, correct.
Which goes through there, which you will see there are taps.
Yes.
That's part of that, was agreement that I helped negotiate with Mr. Deals before he passed. And so just keep that in mind, that we certainly want to preserve that.
Correct. You're correct.
And when you're running a bulldozer, don't cut that baby in two.
We have had that surveyed and are well aware and outside of the limits of that.
Thank you.
We don't want to mess that up, and that was the last slide would just show the areas of access on that property and just working along the stream bank, but being careful to stay out of the.
What do you think the duration of this project will be?
Good weather conditions, 2 to 3 weeks. If we've had weather conditions the way we've been in, we can get in there and get out.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we authorize the county attorney and county manager to proceed with group.
Authorize the county manager to execute that document.
Yes, sir.
Got a motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Shields. Discussion. I agree with it in principle. I just ask that Chester, if everyone's in agreement with it, if there's any construction, the curbing, paving, anything, that they just be responsible for repairing it, which I'm sure y'all would anyway.
Thank you.
Any other things? Any other comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, requests from Sunrise Ridge Road residents to change from West Macon to Clark Chapel Fire Department response areas. Warren Cade, Director of Emergency Services. Welcome, Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know how some of you hate my little small black maps that we put in the packet, so I made some little small color maps for you.
Thank you.
Back in July, our office was approached by a couple residents off of Sunrise Ridge Road, which is off of Sanders Road, about the possibility of changing their fire department response area. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that area, if you look at the color map, the 4 parcels we're talking about are the parcels in purple in the middle. This is an area that adjoins the district boundaries between West Macon and Clark Chapel Fire Department. Sanders Road is off of North Skeena Road, and the road goes all the way through, comes out on Bird Farm Road on Jones Creek on the other side. And originally, when the mapping was done, there really wasn't a lot of houses in there. There wasn't any construction. But what's happened over time, the roads that went in there, and this particular road, the Sunrise Ridge, actually it's more accessible from the North Skeena side than it is from the Jones Creek side. Those folks come and go out Sanders Road down through North Skeena, and there's actually a 45-degree angle to that road there that now any of your large fire trucks that come from the West Macon side have to go past that intersection into Clark Chapel's fire district, find somewhere to turn around and come back because they can't make the turn to get into that road. So we received the request. We went out and looked and talked to those folks. And basically, we'd like to honor their request by altering that map to change their fire department response area from West Macon Fire and Rescue to Clark Chapel Fire and Rescue. We have already discussed this with both the fire departments. Both fire departments are in agreement, so there's no issue with the fire departments on this one. Protection class is the same, so their insurance ratings will be exactly the same. There's a slight change in the service fee, but they're aware of that, so they still think this is the best option for them. So what I'm asking for tonight is approval of the change to the map. And then when we talk about the contracts, I mean, I'm going to mention something else that'll be important later on in this other discussion. But basically now I need approval for the change to the map, and then we'll submit the map to North Carolina Office of State Fire Marshal to officially get it changed.
Can we get a motion?
That's your recommendation?
Yes, sir.
Make a motion.
Got a motion by Commissioner Higdon, second by Commissioner Gillespie. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Warren. On to the next one. Discussion concerning review of fire department contracts.
In your package, I actually included a sample of one of the contracts we have with the fire departments, and those contracts actually have not been changed since 2014. So that's about a 5-year period. So that's a good time to actually look at your contracts and make sure that you've got everything in there that you need. And what I basically wanted to do tonight was inform you that we're going to be looking at those changes, and for you to be thinking about anything that you might want to include in there so we can have those discussions as we go through the next couple of months. We'd like to have that in place to bring back to you, hopefully January-ish, somewhere in there. But a couple of reasons we want to look at some changes. For instance, we just talked about this map. The contracts reference a map in the back of the contract. And we've had to make some changes in contracts. If you remember with Savannah and Cosagen, we had to change the contracts to match the maps. One of the things that Chester and I have talked about is we need to change some verbiage in the contract so that the contract reads the map that's attached and any amendments that might be made or changes along the way so that we stay current on the legal aspect of the map being attached to the contract. There's a couple of other things. The personnel standards that are in our contracts are no longer valid because the state has changed those numbers. So our numbers don't match the state's numbers. There's a few other minor things in there that we want to look at. One of the things we've talked about is what can we do for any of the benefits for the fire department to help either their employees or anything for them. But a lot of times the only way we can do that, whether they're our employees or whether we do something that we can do a group, some sort of insurance policy or something we could do on our end better, we would have to be able to use some of the service fee money for them as a group. Well, this contract doesn't allow that. So if that's something we want to seriously consider, we have to make that possibility happen in the contract so we could even consider that in the future. So there's just a lot of things that it's time to look at. Nothing drastically wrong, but it's basically just time for some cleanup stuff. So we want some input from the fire departments, we want some input from you all, and then Chester and I will work on a document and get it back to you sometime in the next 3 to 4 months.
4 years? 3 to 4 years?
No, sir.
3 to 4 months.
I won't be here in 4 years.
I won't either.
3 to 4 months. I'm sorry. So basically, any questions on that? I really don't need any action. I just wanted to inform you on that. So any questions on that?
Thank you, Warren. All right, next item, Nantahala Health Foundation grant request.
Tonight, we would like to ask for the permission to apply to the Nantahala Health Foundation for a grant request. This is the funding arm of the Dogwood Trust Foundation, the hospital monies that came in through the HCA purchase for the Franklin area. We've actually approved a grant request, if you remember, some months ago for the Highlands Foundation, the end of that. We've actually been fairly successful with that you'll see some budget amendments come through with that, and you'll probably hear some more stuff in the future for that. But we would like to apply for these folks for $100,150. It's no match for us. It's all their money. It's no match for us. To update some laptop computers in our trucks, another cardiac monitor, update our reporting software, and to update our pediatric assessment tools. We use our hand TV system that tells you how much medication, how to treat infants and children, to a mobile app that we can use because everybody carries their phone anymore. Nobody carries paper. But basically, we just like the okay to make that application to them, and then we'll submit that application and see where we get with it. We've been really successful with our grant funding this year. We've been fairly aggressive trying to pursue that funding. Usually, in one of the talks that we did for the Highlands Health Foundation, we explained to them that the primary focus of county government, we have to keep our employees paid. Then we got to keep the wheels on the road. Then we got to keep the lights on and the water bill paid. And then all of your smaller equipment usually is at the tail end of your budget process, which unfortunately sometimes you have to cut out. That's just life. So these grants have been really positive for us to keep our smaller type equipment, even though a cardiac monitor is not that inexpensive, to keep those things updated without me having to come up here and saying, look, I need more tax money help, or I need some more money from the general fund to try and make that happen. So that's been very, very beneficial to us and allowed us to redirect the funds that we have into the areas like personnel and the places where we have to have those funds.
We get a motion to approve the grant request.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Higgins, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Warren. Have a good evening.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Warren.
Item 11E, discussion concerning the appointment of a new tax administrator. Mr. Richard Lightner, tax administrator. Welcome, Richard.
Good evening. I believe you have in your package a notice about my retirement. As people say, the time has come, the end is near. So I will be leaving the county full employment December 16th of this coming year, which is roughly 8 weeks. After 35 years of leading the tax department, it's not something I want to do necessarily get away. It's just after 35 years, there's time for somebody else to, carry forward the county in where the county needs to be. I know over the last few years we've had a lot of department heads leave, and some department heads have left, and we are still searching for a department head. Over the last 4 or 5 years, Derek and I have talked about this, so we took steps to prepare for this time. And what I'm going to recommend is Abby Braswell to take over the remainder of my appointment. The notice you got is January 1, 2021, but it's actually July 1, 2021. We are appointed on odd years, and when somebody steps down, then the county reappoints somebody for the remainder of the unexpired term. So that would be until 2021. And at that time, that person can be appointed for a 4-year term. So what we did is Abby became the first female appraiser in Macon County's history. She is a real estate appraiser. We had her trained. She is also certified by the Department of Revenue as a tax administrator, which she completed last year. So there's no more classes she has to take for the basics. One thing I would say in her behalf, we had a reevaluation this year, and so happened I had emergency back surgery at the same time. So Abby did run the tax office during all the hearings and all that. So she's been with the county 15 years. She's native here. She grew up here, and I think she's the one to continue the continuity which we began 35 years ago. So it's up to the board, and I make that to the board that, since I'm leaving in 8 weeks, we need to continue the continuity of where we've been. I think we've saved the county lots of money. There's a lot of openings throughout the state for tax administrators. Most of them are getting filled by people with nowhere near the experience in the office. So that's what I propose to the board at this point. County manager.
I couldn't agree more, Richard. As Richard said, he had emergency back surgery during this reappraisal, and Abby took the bull by the horns, and she handled the appeals and stepped in and never missed a beat in the tax office. And there's a lot to be said for that. And there's a lot to be said for that about Richard and the way that he cares for this department and acknowledging this and planning for it, coming to me about it, as he said 4 or 5 years ago. That tells you a lot about why that Richard's been able to do what he's done for 35 years, because as the tax man, you're often not as popular as the Sunday school superintendent sometimes, but Richard has a way of being able to explain things to people, and he has a great department with great staff, all well trained, and he's done a great job for 35 years to this county, and something that we should be very grateful for, and just to know that as part of that, he's taken the time to kind of succession plan so that his leaving wouldn't leave the county in in a tight spot. So, Richard, a lot to be said for you, and a lot to be said for that recommendation of Abby, because she has done, and I feel will do a great job.
One thing I failed to remind the board, January this year, we start the 2023 reappraisal. So, there's no lapse on a 4-year schedule. So that's another reason of importance.
Can we get a motion to appoint Ms. Braswell as tax administrator through July 1, 2021 upon the retirement of Richard Leitner?
Mr. Chairman, I've had the privilege of working with Richard as not only chairman of his equalization board for many years, but since I've been a commissioner. And first of all, we can't say enough good things about Richard Leitner. I mean, we're light years ahead of most counties with less equipment than most counties. I know that for a fact. And I would certainly make the motion for Miss Abby Braswell if Abby wants that position. So I would make that in the form of a motion that we follow Mr. Leitner, County Manager's request.
Welcome, Abby. We've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields. Abby, before we vote, would you like to address this?
I want to thank you for taking the time. I want to thank Richard for the last couple of years. He's really had his faith in me. He's pushed me. He's mentored me. He's given me everything I've needed to get this position. And we have a wonderful tax staff. I feel very confident that we can do this together as a group. And as you said, we do a lot with a lot less than other counties. We just came from Union County today. They have 7 appraisers. They have a huge staff. And I think we do just as well or better than they do from what I've seen. So I do believe that we can do this, and I would love to accept this position.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Richard, thank you.
Thank you, board.
Next item on our agenda, discussion.
I'm sorry.
2000.
When she gets sworn in, yeah. That's the last same thing. She has to
When?
take an oath.
Yeah, when we take our oath.
That can't happen
Until
until she
December.
actually,
Until you're gone.
December sometime.
Discussion regarding 2019 tax software update. Rich Leitner.
Okay, this goes back 5 to 10 years also. You heard us talking about software and that. And there's really not any software out there much that does what we do. There's 2, Union County and Gaston County. They are actually working on getting stuff in the field. There's no other county, I don't care where you go in the state of North Carolina, I don't care what county you talk to, there's no county that can take a laptop or a tablet in the field and update the values like we have done in Macon County for the last 10 years. But with that being said, our mainframe software, and you got the information in your package, was written in 1970s at Orange County. It was Orange County developed it with a company. The company Infocell, Corcoran, was who we bought it from in '82. We've been on it. Jackson County, Haywood County, most all the counties are on it at one time. However, that software is 47 years old, something like that, and it's written in an engineering computer language, PIC, and nobody knows the PIC language. You can't tie Windows to it. It's total different software. There's only 4 counties now that's on it. 5, one's coming off. Us and Jackson are still on it. Haywood's come off. Henderson's come off. Watauga's come off. Going to more modern stuff that does what's required by the law in the appraisals, does what we need for the reports to the Department of Revenue and other places. The people we have program, when Barbara Jacobs was here, she was here from day one and she knew how to program some. But we hired Mike Peters with Good Picking, who used to work for the company that developed it. Well, Mike is 67 and he's retiring in the future, near future.
but it takes 3 years minimum to get a software up and running. You do it during a reappraisal time, because if not, you got to run 2 softwares back and back, load one from one side to the next side, and it's not good. There are some developments out there on software. What I'm requesting, because we got to start the reappraisal, if we want to look at software and put it part of our 2023 package, we need to be looking at it now, signing up, and start developing it in the spring. So to get that out, we need to do an RFP, request for proposal, and I come here to ask the county to give me the permission to go out for a request for proposal for new operating software. If not, when, like I said, we're only 2 people. Last year we spent $63,000 keeping our software up to date, getting the reports and that out of it. So it's becoming a very cost prohibitive in trying to stay with old software, because that cost continues. There's no updates to it.
What's your best guess, Richard, on the cost?
Anywhere from, we have a lot of stuff on ours. We'll save some in some areas, but what we would, and I got the RFP ready and we'll put it out. It has to deal with our GIS, our land records and all that, because we take GIS in the field. There's counties, big counties, that still take out paper maps like you've seen here this evening. But when we go out there, I pull up to Mr. Bill's house, it shows me on GIS, satellite and everything, I'm in your yard. So it's got to work with that. With that, we're probably looking about $350,000, $400,000, but that's paid over. There's a big lump sum at the first year because you got to buy the software, and then it drops down. Like maintenance fees per year will run about $60,000, which is comparable to what we pay now. So we've been on this since '82, so you're looking at almost 40 years. So $250,000, $400,000 for 40-year investment is pretty good.
And also, Richard's been, he's been doing his homework on this, and for about the last 2 months, 2 to 3 months, has been actively communicating with about 4 of these different firms, coming in, watching presentations with his whole staff in here. These folks have been coming in, presenting their software.
IT was involved too.
IT was involved as well, going out into the field, so we can be sure that it's compatible with what we have here at our network and things like that. So there's a lot of background and a lot of homework that Richard and the tax office have done leading up to being able to issue this RFP.
And one thing, going to new software, do anything, build a new deck that you've never built before, you're going to have some trial and error. Same way with software. What we've done in 40 years, we're not going to reduplicate it in 6 months or a year. It's going to take a while to mature that software, but you have to begin somewhere. We have no rights to a software right now except the 40-year-old stuff that we can't keep updating.
What's not been mentioned, Mr. Chairman, is the savings that this department has done over the years, every reval year. Just knowing what some of these other counties have spent, I'd say that Mr. Leitner has probably paid his own way in the department. So I think that it's pretty much time.
I agree with you. Information is useful. If we don't have it or don't know it, then we don't have anything else to compare it to. So I think it's a good idea to proceed. So
Make a motion to move forward, Mr.
Got a motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Richard.
You've already voted, but just to understand, there's no money budgeted currently, so
Right.
by voting yes tonight, you're voting to give whatever money it costs. Just want to make that clear.
If we find the right.
Yeah, if you find the right product.
If not,
We're just getting proposals.
Plan B.
Right.
Congratulations, Abby.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abby.
You'll do a great job.
Somebody have my
Mike, where you going? It ain't open.
It's over for me, brother.
Get out of here, I'm like a chicken.
Barely getting out of here. Follow you, get out there and open it.
All right, we're almost done. I say we keep going unless somebody needs a break.
He came inside.
Item 11G, contract for services with Community Care Clinic. Chester Jones.
The agreement that is in front of you is just basically memorializes the funding that we provided to the Community Care Clinic at the last meeting. What it does is it lists, that in exchange for the funding we're providing to the Community Care Clinic, that they're going to agree to provide medical care services to low-income individuals.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
Since Chester and Oak, we did that.
Item 11H, reject bid request number 4310-09, in-car system and body cameras.
Sir, Mr. Chairman, the bids that we received back for the in-car camera systems failed to be in compliance. Essentially, they didn't provide the required information we needed on the RFP for our IT staff to make the determinations on, again, compatibility with our system. What we got was pretty much just a quote that was attached to the RFP. So we need this information, so we're going to have to reject the bids that were received and then rebid this again.
I don't even know that you have to reject if they didn't meet the standards.
Okay.
They're not qualifying bid.
Just,
We'll take it under information.
File 13.
okay.
Thank you. Item 11I, Frank Myatt, Carolina Motel occupancy tax penalty waiver. Lori Hall.
His letter was in your agenda packet, so.
No other comments?
What was the amount?
$930.
Remind you have to find good cause shown to excuse or to remit any portion. And this was an internet, planned to be an internet.
Went to his junk email from his accountant.
No,
That's what he
folks,
said.
Interest and penalty that he's requesting to be excused.
Penalties.
The whole $930 penalty.
So he's paying the fee, he's just not wanting to pay the penalty and the interest.
Yeah, he remitted his
Okay.
tax.
Okay.
He remitted his tax for June and
But he's
July.
wanting the interest excused as well.
Yes. We've not calculated it because it's kind of a moot point.
As Mr. Hyde had it, he says in he's had a stellar payment record. Is that true?
I think for the most part, I know we've had to send him letters in the past that we've waived penalties internally. But
So, have we waived?
as have been the case with other people that y'all have waived penalties for, so.
He's a motel that he knows to submit
He knows.
this every month,
He does.
and then he forgot.
Well, I think his letter says that
Yeah.
his accountant sent it via email and it went to his spam folder and was overlooked, so.
It's a better excuse than some of the other ones, it seems like I've heard going through these, but
That's a good point, Chairman.
Can we go to a motion to approve or disapprove the penalty waiver?
I think historically we've approved these, correct?
We have, yeah.
I
For
make a
good
motion.
cause shown.
Pardon, sir?
For good cause shown.
Well,
I
the
think
dog didn't eat it, so that's the same thing.
The dog eats homework.
Yeah. Lost it. But I do have experience every once in a while. Some of my information goes into file 13 on my computer.
I think where these people are going to run into an issue with us is when you start getting the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden
Yeah, to
we're
me,
going to
when y'all
we're going to put the stop sign
when
up.
you
and say,
wave it
"Whoa."
for
You
the
make a
first
motion,
time,
I'll
then-
second your motion.
Got a motion by Commissioner Shields, second by Commissioner Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is that right? Unanimous, Mr. Decker. Consent agenda.
Before we go to that, Chester, did we be able to disperse our money to our broadband partners?
We have undertaken considerable research on that, We have not closed the door yet, but we have run into some issues, and we are trying to work through those.
Can you send us an update on those issues?
Be happy to update you at any time.
If you can you send them by email? Is that permissible?
Sure.
I'd like to have them before Thursday.
What
We're
is
going to
it that
Raleigh
you're-
on Thursday.
What is it you're looking for?
Just see why we can't go ahead and approve it. What you're digging for. We want to find reasons to do it, not do it. And I'm taking it to Raleigh. I'll take it to Raleigh Thursday with your concerns, or whoever's concerned.
You got a day to do that.
I've got the information. If y'all want to sit down and discuss it in closed session tonight, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Just send it to me. I'll just take it. They can call you.
All right, now consent agenda, the September 10th board meeting minutes, budget amendment number 74, budget amendments number 75 through 81, budget amendments number 84 through 85, tax releases, tax office monthly report, Macon County Public Health billing guide and fee changes, Brantley construction change order number 2 for South Macon School project. We can normally approve these as one unless somebody would like something removed. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is that project closed out now, Derek?
I think it's the last thing, isn't it, Lori?
We're getting close, yeah. This is definitely the last change order. And so we're getting very close to getting it all
We're okay on money?
tied up. Pardon?
The money,
The money?
the contract, what money was appropriated compared to the contract, initial contract?
Yeah, I think with these change orders, of course, we're a little over contract, but we are well within contingency.
We still got money in contingency?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we funded change order 1, this will fund change order 2, and this one also funds the pre-K playground out there. So even after all that, there'll still be some in contingency.
Good. It looks good. What do you need, Mr. Chairman?
Need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as
Motion by
presented.
Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Gillespie. All in favor?
Aye.
Appointments, we have 2 for the Macon County Planning Board for 2 open seats. We have Mark Berry and Gene Owen. Commissioner Gillespie is liaison.
We currently have 2 openings on the planning board after making one appointment last month, and I think these 2 individuals will fill a couple of voids that we have on the planning board in regards to expertise, and I make a motion to accept those.
Okay, got a motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Higdon. All in favor? Aye. I should have added this under our agenda, and I failed to. As chairman, we made a switch as liaison appointments. Effective today, became the liaison to MPP, and Commissioner Higdon became the liaison to the Board of Health. We just made an alternate switch there. So anyway, Derek, it probably wouldn't hurt. I think I've emailed everybody. If you could just put out a letter or just from your correspondence to make sure that that's taken care of.
Okay.
I think I do. I think we have reason for closed session regarding property acquisition. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And we will be taking action.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
I see Jim Gray. Jim, anything?
No, I'd just like to sit in from time to time.
Thank you for what you're doing, Jim.
Absolutely.
I meant to call you.
Definitely recognized.
Glad you're out.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, can we get a motion to go into closed session? Motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Higdon. All in favor?
For the stated
Aye.
purpose.
Good, aye. Thank you, Jim. Safe travels home.
See you, Jim.
Are you going to expect action?
Yes.
What should we do?
Bet you can guess on what.
And we're going to send it over via email?
I'm going to be gone.
Somebody feed Jake.
Jake.
Got on that. Thank the Lord for that.
I leave Thursday morning.
You were right.
I gotta be in Wilmington at 1 o'clock.
Where you are.
Burlington is Burlington Cashier Bank.
It's a long trek in the fall.
I should be back.
It's a long trek from Burlington to Cashers.
I do it every day. Well, no, it's on that.
I'll see if you're there. You're not
Little bear pit.
Yeah, I'm in
Big bear pit.
Oh, yeah.
I'm saving my, I got my other cleaned up to go
They
get.
found lots up there.
I'll come by tomorrow, brother.
If I'm not there, you know where I is. I'll be at Jimmy Tate House. He's bound
Buying
on
lunch tomorrow. Okay. Mr. Manager, bring us up to speed.
Yes, sir. Concerning the potential acquisition of real property that we had previously discussed, the Stauffer property in Highlands, I think we had entered into a contract to purchase that property, and with the entering into that contract came a due diligence period where the county attorney has performed the legal work necessary and with regards to the title, where he feels comfortable and that we're in a place with clear title. We have looked into the zoning restrictions. We have looked into the ability for that property to have water and sewer if need be. And with that being said, I think the end of our due diligence period approaches tomorrow. So if it would be the pleasure of this board to not walk away from that, basically that due diligence period was just so if we found a reason, something that threw up a red flag on this property, that we did have the ability to walk away. And at this point, if I'm hearing everyone correctly, I don't think we found that. So, and unless the board would like, we are awaiting a survey, and I can have it tomorrow, have information on it tomorrow morning. But with that being said,
Mr. Major, I make a motion that we purchase the property as we proposed, with the contingency that the final survey be approved by the attorney, the county manager, and the chairman.
Second.
Now, in the event it is not complete tomorrow, what are your instructions?
My instructions would be to go ahead and purchase the property. This piece of property will be useful for recreation regardless, but we're in hopes that there's no problem with the survey. But I think he'll have it in the morning. He'll have it pretty soon if he,
Sure. We have a motion.
he knows the deadline.
Commissioner Bill, a second by Commissioner Gillespie. Before we vote, Mr. Manager, can you remind the public and us in general the purchase price again, as well as the exact acreage?
the exact acreage is 1.75 acres, if I'm not mistaken, and the purchase price, Lori, is
71,880.
$71,880.
This adjoins our current recreation complex off Buck Creek Road in Hollins.
And would you mind adding in with your motion to approve a budget amendment?
And also in my motion, I approve a budget amendment for the exact amount, Lori.
71,380 from general fund balance.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I will vote with Mr. Bill on that.
You always do. That's what she said.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Hickman.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gillespie. All in favor? Aye.
My chair, she said that.
Oh. I gotta go.